All right, welcome. Mr. Thompson is here, just hiding behind the good old camera. And today, which is September 17th, we are going to chat up angles a little bit, and something you guys should be familiar with. Up on the board, I'm just going to scroll across. We're going to talk about 4 basic types of angles. The first one you see there is a straight angle, which is one we're probably least likely to use. But a straight angle is an angle that measures 180 degrees. And if you think about going from one side of the angle all the way to the other, you're doing a half circle, which is 180 degrees. Now, as we roll to our right, the ones that we'll see most of the time will be acute angles, obtuse angles, and right angles. Now, keep in mind when we measure angles, we measure them in degrees. That's one way to measure them. And we're going to use protractors, and we'll measure them from 0 to 180 degrees. An acute angle is any angle whose measure falls between 0 and 90 degrees. It has to be larger than 0 degrees and less than 90 degrees. That is an acute angle. A right angle is when you have an angle that is exactly 90 degrees, a perfect corner, if you will. You can see the 90-degree angle always has a little box in the corner to indicate that those rays are perpendicular. And an obtuse angle, as I hope you recall from middle and elementary school, is an angle who is greater than 90 degrees but less than 180. It's the largest of the angles. Now, we're going to talk also about naming angles. And this is where good old Mr. Thompson will make a wonderful appearance. As you can see on the board there, we have an angle. We have 2 sides of the angle, this side here, this side here, and you're going to see this little number 1 in the middle. All right, how do we name an angle? We can name an angle 3-4 ways. Okay, one way kind of works sometimes. First thing we need to know is the point where the 2 sides of the angle meet is called the vertex. All right, that is the vertex. Very, very important you understand that word vertex. You will hear it a lot from now until June for sure. Now, the most common way to name an angle is using 3 letters, and the safest way. When we name an angle, one of the ways we can name it is using the 3 letters, and the vertex has to come in the middle. So we put a little angle symbol down. Again, mathematicians aren't real creative, so that if we're talking about angles, we use an angle symbol. And we use 3 letters. Now, the middle letter will be the vertex, B. What's going to be to the left and right of the vertex, in order doesn't matter, is any point that is on either other side of the line, angle. So if A is on one side of the vertex, and B and C is on the other side of the vertex, there's one way to name the angle, angle ABC. By the way, if you named it angle CBA, that would be correct as well. The next way you can name an angle is when you have a little measure, or not a measure, when you have a little number in there, when it's not a measure, when you don't see the degree sign by it. If that's the case, it's actually the name of the angle. So we could say, all right, well, we're going to name this angle 1. Simple as that. And as we progress through the year, you'll actually see that happen quite a bit, where we put little numbers in there and just name it by that specific angle. And the last way, which sometimes works, other times doesn't, I'll talk about that in a second, is you can sometimes, keyword sometimes, name an angle by just the vertex. So we could also call this just angle B. That works when there is only a single angle. When, like this picture, we only have one angle, that works. All of a sudden, say if we were to extend this and add another ray and create, say, another angle, now all of a sudden we couldn't use angle B as our angle, because I don't know what I'm talking about. Does angle B refer to this opening? Does angle B refer to this little opening? Or does angle B refer to this big opening? So the only time you can use angle B is when we are looking at a single angle. Question. So there's naming angles. Now hopefully that's nothing super new to you. Hopefully it's a refresher. We'll take a look at some Algebra 2 stuff, or some geometry, software geometry. So what we have here, we have first problem, we have a picture here, a couple angles. They tell us some information about them. They tell us that angle DEG is 115 degrees. Here's my take. I highlight these, I redraw them, color them in. I connect the dots. Where does that 115 go? It connects the opening D, E, G. So what we know is that whole big angle, that whole big opening going from D all the way to G is 115 degrees. Now they also tell us some more information. They tell us that angle FEG is at 48 degrees. So where's that? Connect the dots. F to E to G, 48 degrees. So that leaves us with the ultimate question. Find the measure of angle DEF. In other words, how big is that? Well, just like the segment addition postulate, small plus small has to add up to the big. So we could say our unknown plus the other small, 48, has to add up and cover that whole opening of 115 degrees. So we could subtract our 48 from both sides and you'll get your answer. Now before I go through the second example on the bottom, I just got to make sure you can see it. Should be good. Now you'll notice I don't have the whole problem written down, and here's why. A picture's worth 1,000 words. The first part of this problem says ray KM bisects angle JKL. Here's my advice. Draw a picture. Okay. Start with your biggest object. What's bigger, an angle or a ray? Hopefully you said an angle. So we could draw a picture. Doesn't matter what kind of angle it is. What matters is our vertex is K. One side of the angle should have a J on it, one side should have an L on it. So now we have to include ray KM, because that's the smaller of the shape. Now this problem does use some geometric wording of bisect, so it is important we remember bisect means split into two congruent parts. In other words, this big angle needs to be cut in half, cut into two equal parts. So where KM goes, we have the K, don't reinvent K. What we're going to do is just kind of draw that in, and now we have KM, and we've created two smaller but equal angles, congruent angles. Now we can go on with the problem and fill everything else in. So when they tell us now that JKM is 4x plus 6, we can pop that in there. J, K, M, 4x plus 6. When they tell us that M to K to L is 7x minus 12, we can pop that in there. M to K to L is our 7x minus 12. Having a picture, again, worth 1,000 words, knowing what bisect means. What that allows us to do is we can now look at those angles, and when they ask us to find the value of x, you got to think, well, what do we know about these two angles? What do we know about it? Oh, bisect means congruent or equal. So we know the two smaller angles, the 4x plus 6, has to be equal to the 7x minus 12. And then from there we can solve this. You can figure out what x is. If it has, you can put it back in. But I know we're pretty good at linear equations, so you can figure out what x is. What does x equal this one? Maybe 6 in this one. If you have questions, ask. But what I'm going to have you do now, I'm going to scan down and give you a couple problems to try, submit them to the Google form I posted below this video. All right. The one other important thing you need to know for the Google form is this. On December 18th, 2015, Star Wars: The Force Awakens will be out in theaters. December 18th, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. All right, I'll get over behind the camera, scan down, show you what we're looking for, show you the problems you need to answer, and submit to the Google form that's directly below this video. Peace. Those are the problems you need to try.